Sonny was off to face a nightmare creature. And not any creature, but one of the highest categories of terrifying creatures that existed within the nightmare realm. A dreaded, fearsome tyrant. The odds of survival were so low that anyone would have laughed in his face if he were to ever suggest attempting to fight it. Only an awakened that was at least 2 or 3 ranks above the creature would have stood a chance. Sonny certainly wasn't one of those. And yet, he had to deal with this Mountain King somehow to avoid an even more miserable death. The ridiculous degree to which the odds were stacked against him from the very beginning of this delayed execution had gotten old a long time ago. He didn't have the energy to even bother thinking about it. What was there to fear anyway? He was already as good as dead, so why worry about it? On the other side of the bonfire, things were turning from bad to worse. Most of the slaves were already dead. A few soldiers were still desperately trying to fight the monster, but it was clear that they weren't going to last long. Right in front of Sonny's eyes, the tyrant picked up a dead slave, dragging the chain up with him, and opened its terrifying maw wide. With one crushing bite, the slave's body was torn in half, leaving only bloodied stumps inside the shackles. The Mountain King's 5 indifferent milky eyes stared into the distance as it chewed, streams of blood flowing down its chin. Seeing that the creature's upper arms were busy, one of the soldiers screamed and lunged forward, brandishing his long spear. Without turning its head, the tyrant extended one of its shorter lower arms, catching the soldier's head in an iron grip. It squeezed, crushing the poor man's skull like a grape. A moment later, the headless body was tossed over the cliff, disappearing into the abyss below. Benny doubled over, vomiting violently into the snow. Then he shakily rose to his feet and glared at Sonny.
Well, we've had a look. Now what?
Sonny did not answer, pensively observing the tyrant with his head slightly tilted to one side. Benny turned to Fraser.
I'm telling you, old man, the boy is sick in the head. How the hell can he be so calm?
Shh! Lower your voice, fool.
Blood drained from Benny's face as he clapped his hands over his mouth. Then he cast a fearful look in the direction of the tyrant. Luckily, the abomination was too busy feasting on the slaves, the lucky ones who were already dead, and the unlucky ones who were still alive, to pay them any attention. Benny slowly exhaled. Sonny was preoccupied with thinking, measuring his chances of survival. How do I get rid of that thing? He didn't have any special powers, nor did he have an army ready to bury the tyrant under a mountain of bodies. He didn't even have a weapon to at least scratch the damn bastard. Sonny moved his gaze and looked past the creature, into the endless darkness of the moonless sky. Suddenly, a bright flash streaked in the air and collided with one of the tyrant's arms. The collision burst and sparks rained down onto the mountainside. The young soldier, Sonny's heroic liberator, had just tossed a burning piece of wood at the monster and was now defiantly raising his sword.
Face me, devil!
A distraction. Perfect. Sonny knew there was no way he could kill the Mountain King with his own 2 hands. He decided to enlist some help. A human wouldn't be up to the task, but a force of nature on the other hand. Since I can't do the bastard in myself, let's make gravity do it for me. He was in the middle of thinking over the details of the plan when the young hero's foolish bravado presented an opportunity. Now, everything depended on how long the pompous idiot would manage to stay alive. Come with me, Sonny said as he started running toward the far end of the stone platform, where the heavy wagon was perched dangerously close to the edge of the cliff. Benny and Fraser shared a hesitating look, but followed him anyway. Benny muttered under his breath,
Is this calm confidence or madness?
Fraser shook his head. Who knows, but it is often the mad who are favored by the gods. Behind them, the young heroic soldier nimbly ducked under the tyrant's claws, slashing it with his sword. The sharp edge slid ineffectively across the dirty fur, not leaving even a scratch on the creature's flesh. In a flash, the tyrant moved with frightening speed, throwing all four of its hands in the direction of its new, irritating foe. Meanwhile, Sonny ran with all his speed towards the wagon. Once he reached it, he hurriedly looked around, checking if there were any larvae close by. Once he was sure he was in the clear, he pushed the wagon, trying to move its rear wheels. The wagon was left at the upper end of the stone platform, where it narrowed and turned back into the road. It was turned sideways to block the wind, with its front facing the mountain wall and its back facing the cliff. There were two large wooden wedges placed under the rear wheels to prevent the wagon from rolling backward. Sonny turned to his companions and pointed at the wedges.
When I tell you, remove both of them, then push. Understand? What? Why?
Benny stared at him with a dumbfounded expression on his face. Fraser just looked at the wedges and then at the tyrant. The young soldier was miraculously still alive. He was weaving between the creature's limbs, always just half a second away from being completely eviscerated. From time to time, his sword flashed in the air, but to no avail. The Mountain King's fur was too thick, and his skin too tough to be harmed by mundane weapons. There was a hint of apprehension on the young warrior's face. All the other soldiers, as far as Sonny could see, were already dead. Sonny needed that soldier to live a little bit longer.
Don't die yet,
he thought. To Benny, he simply said,
just do it. Trust me.
The next moment, Sonny was running again, trying to follow the chain from the brace where it was fixed to the wagon. The thing he was searching for was hard to notice due to all the bodies, blood, and viscera littering the stone platform. But for once, luck was on his side. A short amount of time later, he had found what he needed, the torn end of the chain. Finding the nearest set of shackles, complete with a horribly disfigured body of a slave locked in them, Sonny plopped down on his knees and scrambled to unlock them. With a sideways glance, Sonny noticed the brave young soldier flying through the air, finally caught by one of the tyrant's strikes. Incredibly, the young soldier managed to land on his feet, sliding several feet across the stones. All of his limbs were still in place. There were no terrible wounds on his body either. Without skipping a beat, the soldier rolled forward, picking up his sword from where it fell on the ground, and then rolled once more, this time sideways, narrowly avoiding a heavy stomp from the creature's foot. With a resounding click, Sonny finally managed to unlock the shackles, shaking the dead slave out of them. He promptly locked them once again, this time around the chain itself, ending up with a makeshift slipknot and loop. Now, everything depended on his resolve, hand-eye coordination, and luck. Turning to Benny and Fraser, who were still waiting by the wagon, he screamed,
Now!
Then, picking up a sizable length of chain, Sonny stood up and faced the tyrant. The young soldier spared him half a glance. His eyes lingered on the chain for a moment, and then quickly followed it to the wagon. Without showing a hint of emotion, the young warrior doubled his efforts, drawing the creature's attention away from Sonny. Sonny focused on the weight of the chain in his hands, the distance between him and the tyrant, and his target. Time seemed to slow.
Please, don't miss.
Gathering all of his strength, Sonny spun and threw the chain in the air. Like a fisherman casting his net, the loop opened as it flew, closing in on the position of the fight between the young soldier and the tyrant. Sonny just needed the loop to land on the ground, close enough to them that once one of the tyrant's feet landed in the trap, he could pull on the chain and tighten it around the monster's ankle. In the last moment, the Mountain King suddenly flinched back, and instead of falling on the ground, the chain loop landed perfectly around its neck. A second later, it tightened, acting as an iron noose. Sonny froze for a moment. He couldn't believe his eyes. He clenched his jaw and balled his fists at his side. He held himself back from triumphantly shaking them in the air.
Yes!
He screamed inwardly. Moments later, the wagon rolled off the cliff, pulling the Tyrant down with it. Sonny looked back to make sure, but what he saw drained the blood from his face. Benny and Fraser had managed to remove the wedges from under the wagon's wheels and were now desperately pushing it to the edge of the road. However, the wagon was rolling slowly, very slowly, much slower than Sonny had anticipated. He turned to the Tyrant, panicking. The creature, surprised by the sudden weight pressing down on its neck, was already raising its hands to tear the chain apart. Sonny's eyes widened. In the next second, the young knight crashed into one of the Tyrant's legs, throwing it off balance and buying them some more time. Sonny was already running to the wagon, cursing loudly in his mind. Reaching it, he threw all of his weight into the damp wood alongside Benny and Fraser. He pushed with all the strength left in his rather small, terribly beaten, and enormously exhausted body.
Roll! Roll, you creaky piece of shit!
The wagon sped up a little, but was still too slow. It needed more momentum to reach the cliff's edge. Sonny turned and saw something that sent a ripple of dread across his body. The Tyrant had finally managed to get a hold of the chain tied around its neck, trying to free itself.
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.